Hi, aloha, welcome to iTeach808, Empowering Hawaii's Teachers and Technology Conference, sponsored by the Augustine Educational Foundation and Sacred Hearts Academy, Honolulu. My name is Debbie, and I'll be facilitating this session. We're honored to have Imelda Amano join us today and share her expertise through a 45-minute presentation named Filipino Children's Literature by StoryJumper and BrushNinja. So let's give a warm aloha to Imelda.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for having me. Thanks for the introduction, Debbie. Oh my gosh, Laurel is here too. Okay, so I guess I'll start with the share screen. Is that okay, Debbie? Okay. And here we go. I will put it on slideshow. Please let Debbie know if there's anything that if you can't hear it, or if there's something that you can't see. Okay. Yes, it's titled Bumasa Tayo, Filipino Children's Literature. And I'm a retired teacher and librarian from the DOE. There's a little asterisk here next to the title because I had to ask my auntie and uncles, since I'm not a fluent speaker, how do you say, let's read together or let's start reading? So in Ilocano, on the bottom here, under my name, Agbasa Tayon in Ilocano means let's read. Magbasa na tayo is another way to say let's read, and that's in Tagalog. Okay, so this was inspired actually by a book called When Lola Visits by Michelle Sterling, and she's a Filipino-American author. I'll tell you a little bit more about her later, but that's what inspired me to do this, and also maybe the $100, but and so when I confronted Laurel and I said, hey, can I do something about children's literature? And she said, sure, you may, but there has to be a team with it. So I had to think real hard back to the days when I was teaching and found BrushNinja and StoryJumper. So put those two together for this presentation. But before I start, this first slide here says there are only 6 slides because I wanted time in the end for the participants to play around with BrushNinja and StoryJumper. And also, we want to give a shout out to the Sacred Hearts Academy and especially the Augustine Educational Foundation that Debbie mentioned earlier. And these are the 2 groups that Laurel every year writes for a grant. And since 2012, she's been sponsoring this terrific mini conference for about 300 of us from all different schools, and I've always enjoyed it. It's yeah. Anyway, the first slides, I'll just make four points, discuss 4 talking points about this case study that was done by Dr. Patricia Halagao. And then it moves into culturally responsive teaching. And it will highlight a teacher in Arizona, John Carlo Tulinao. And then we'll look at 2 book lists. And then we'll look at 2 lesson plans. They're all in draft form on how to use BrushNinja and StoryJumper for 2 specific stories by Filipino American writers. So first slide. On everything that's, by the way, everything that's underlined or most of the images will have a link. So this here will link you to a 70-page study. It was done in 2017 by Dr. Halaga, and I think she's still at UH doing, I think she's in the College of Ed, I think. I know that fellow librarian, what's her name, Caroline Lee, I think, worked with her a lot. But in this study, on page 5, she describes several purposes, and one of them was to improve instruction and to make recommendations for curricular and systemic reform. And I like how she used the word systemic because I guess since 2017, her group, Dr. Halagao, her students, and there's a there's a small branch at the College of Ed that I guess is trying to make a dent in, getting more local kids, especially local Filipino kids, to become teachers or to become role models in some way, and also to very slowly try to get into, try to change the DOE statewide curriculum. On page 29, there's a little asterisk there on, and what she doesn't say, before I continue with page 29, what she doesn't study, she makes it very readable. So there's like a introduction page, and then a bunch of data, and then she interprets the data and makes, and talks about her significant findings. So that's what I liked about her study. It was very easy reading. So on page 29, she did say that all ethnic groups that she looked at, and most especially Filipino students, she says that there's a gain in reading and math, but whatever the existing gaps are between the different ethnic groups, she said the gaps have not changed dramatically. So everyone's kind of moving along, whatever the gaps are. And especially for the Filipinos, Hawaii students, they haven't changed a whole lot. She does not go into specific like problem areas, like if it's reading or language. She looked at geography kind of, and also some test scores. But with those test scores, I don't think it specifically says, standards 1A, part 2, phonetics or something like that. So it's not as detailed in that sense, but she was able to track gaps and successes and not so successes of this one particular group. And anyway, in the end, on page 42 and 58 of her study, she came to the conclusion that students in general will do better or are doing better in schools where culture-based education is a focus. And then in 2017, she listed Pahoa Elementary. Now, I didn't take the time to contact Pahoa Elementary to ask the curriculum coordinator there, like, oh, what you guys doing, as far as culture. So I'm not exactly sure what was happening in 2017-18 that may have increased, some scores. So, and it could be like, I'm not sure if that's an isolated incident, but she did make a point in saying that where culture is touched upon, the students respond and work better. Then on page 68, it outlines the BOE, the Board of Education, the policies that are there, and its focus is mainly on those of you in DOE will recognize it, but it's I can't remember it right now, but it has a Hawaiian, it's a Hawaiian term, but it came out, these policies came out just in the last couple of years. It's asking schools to make some cultural changes in their curriculum. And the focus was on Hawaii, but it can also be expanded to, to embrace other heritages represented by our students. This here is a link to our DOE policies, and it's titled multicultural. And I'm not sure what the trending word or term is now, but on our state website, it's still called multicultural studies or multicultural education. Tinalak at UH, this is the one that came out of the study. It was formed in 2012, I think, somewhere around there. And their mission is to recruit and support Filipino American teachers in Hawaii. And they have a very pretty website. So that link is there for you to explore later. And then on page 64 of that same study, again, she says, culturally responsive teaching, or CRT, improvements occur when they are taught, when the students are taught through their own cultural and experiential filters. And then in parentheses, I placed, along with universal tools and venues, example, literature, music, technology, collaborative work. We can't just look at, culture can't be taught in isolation. For it to be successful, there has to be some kind of integrative to it. So by some accident, I came across this teacher, John Carlo Tulinao in Amberlea Elementary, Arizona, who does CRT. And the funny part is he wasn't even sure that he was doing it in the first place. It just, his curriculum kind of evolved. He's originally from the Philippines, and he's one of those teachers that got recruited to teach overseas, and he chose US. And at the time, Arizona were, I think they have a teacher shortage even now. And anyway, he went into the system, and he's very successful. He's working on his doctorate's degree now, but he teaches science through music because he's a musician himself. And he's originally a music teacher and then turned elementary teacher. And what he does is, some things that he does before I go on to the next slide is, for example, Amberlea Elementary is predominantly Black and Hispanic, and then with a sprinkling of everyone else. So he does have units on like the African drum, since his focus is music. And then for his Hispanic students, one of his lessons is he has a unit in which he teaches force and gravity and velocity with that cultural artifact. So the students learn the science of that, the physics of the piñata. And then with a violin unit, I guess he has a set of violin that gets deconstructed and reconstructed every year by his students. So that was like the engineering of an instrument. And what's really interesting is he teaches first grade, and they were doing all of this at first grade. And I'm pretty confident when, as I looked at some of the articles about him and his interviews on YouTube, that much of his stuff can be modified for older students and still be very successful. So his picture, this is John over here. That first picture links to article number 1 about him. This is article number 2, and this is his YouTube interview. He did win an award, a national award by NSTA right here, National Science Teachers Academy. It was called the Shell Award, and it's for teachers who does STEM or STEAM. Okay, I'll pause here a little bit. If you have any questions, you can put it through chat, and Debbie is monitoring that, or you can unmute right now, and I can respond. I'll count 5 seconds, okay? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, okay. Okay, anyway, we have a question and answer at the end. All right, so no comments, or I don't see the chat boxes. All right, so we'll just continue. All right, so here's the meat of it all, the last 3 sides. Let's take a look at this list of 40 Filipino American books. And there's so many things online. So it wasn't for this list, and maybe because there aren't that many lists on Filipino American books, that it was fairly easy to narrow the one list that I wanted. And I thought this was pretty good. So let's take a look at it. There is, you can pin this too if you have a Pinterest account. So I was pleasantly surprised that there were quite a bit of books out there, more children's book than for the secondary. And only because when I was growing up, and I did, I was growing up in elementary during the late 60s and then middle and high schools in the 70s. And I don't recall, and this is Hawaii, I don't remember seeing, children's storybooks about, anything Filipino. So I was very pleasantly surprised. So here we have a bunch of things, and some of them are, what is that, dictionary type thing. And I tried to look for a bunch of them in our Hawaii Public Library, and I didn't find most of them. Like, what is this? Is it a mermaid? Couldn't find that one. Of course, this one, when Lola visits, this just came out like maybe about 6-8 months ago. And I got a chance to email with the author. Michelle she is so warm and sweet and charming as her book. And one of the ways that she got her books all the way out here to Hawaii was she contacted the shop, places like the shop, and wrote to them about, oh, can I have books sold at your shop? And of course the shop said yes, and they were one of the first ones to bring the books out. And it's one of the best children's books I've come across. And regardless whether it's Filipino or not, it's just so well written and so nicely illustrated. This one here could not find, hand over hand, could not find it in a public library. This has been around for a while, Filipino Friends. I think that's like a word book. Never heard of this one. Lumpia for Lunch, I tried to look for that, not in our public system also, our library public system. I thought that was interesting. Couldn't find this one either. From Manila with Love. I didn't quite look at that. This one, Filipino Children's Favorite Stories, are probably in a quarter of or maybe almost half of our school libraries already, because they run along the same lines as Japanese children's favorite stories, Chinese children's favorite stories, or Vietnamese. There's a whole bunch of them. This is fairly new. It's almost like When Lola Visits, and it was by a housewife, written by a housewife whose son, she wanted to read to her son, who was in preschool at the time, a story about his Lola and how, how funny she speaks sometimes. This one is new to me, and Larry Itlong is what is he? He's kind of like a Cesar Chavez. He was involved in the part of that whole California Farmers Union history. Pandi South Saves the Day is in Laurel's library, and it's also at the public library. Cute story. But I still found some of the other books a little more charming. Willie Wins, did not find that one. But notice there's just a whole bunch. Cora Cook's Pansit, that's familiar. That's in maybe almost half of our DOE school, elementary school library right there. And this one is interesting. I did not know that the first yo-yo was patented by a Pedro Flores. So this is his story. This one here, Lacas, this is the second installment. Anthony Robles wrote a first one, and they are both children's book, but I think it's more for the upper grades, probably even middle school, because it's historical fiction, and because Anthony Robles himself is very active in his community in saving Manila town. It's, to me, both books are a little more political, so I think more for older. But it goes on, and then it goes into middle and high school. This is May Respicho's second book, How to Win a Slime War, and it's in our public at the public library. This one is supposed to be pretty good. May Respicho recommended Everlasting Nora. but there's a whole bunch right here. Oh, and then I did read, of course, The House That Lou Built. And this one here, I wanted to focus on this one. This one is really interesting. This, The Heart, My Heart Underwater. This one has various voices in it, and this is more for high school, and it has a very heartwarming LBGQ theme going on in there. And that's the end of that. Oops, oh, sorry. Okay, so this one here takes you to Michelle Sterling's author page, and I won't go there. I'm kind of looking at the time. We need to get into the, but the video on this book is very beautiful. Lit Asian is very similar to this link here, and it's more for the upper grades. And this link here, the name of May Respicio, that takes you to her author page. And both author websites are very, very well done. This one here, A Word from Author, I did ask May Respicio online, emailed her. I asked her 3 questions, and her responses were very interesting. I thought she didn't believe that there's a boom or surge in Filipino American literature. She thinks that we're just at the very beginning, and she is trying her darnest to train new writers of different voices, but especially those from her community. Okay, so let's, well, any questions? Oh my goodness, there's like 11 chats. I guess I can, I'll get to them at the end then, yeah. And we are almost at the end. I wanted to give some practice time. Okay. Yeah, so just that one question alone, she had like a 2-paragraph response to why there may or may not be a surge in Filipino American literature across the nation. And also, because many book writers work with editors, I was just curious if some parts of her story were changed dramatically to fit more of the mainstream reader, or I guess the larger population. And it sounded like it didn't, that whatever original idea she had for The House That Lou Built, that pretty much continued from beginning to end. And she said the only thing that changed was the theme of home, I think it was. But she does a beautiful job too. I read this book as well. It's a 1-2 night reader, and there's a lot of universal themes in there. And my 2 nieces, who are like a quarter Filipino, who know nothing about that heritage, they enjoyed it. They liked the girly issues and the fact that there's a boy in there that Lou had a crush on. And then they said, oh yeah, it was kind of interesting how she mentioned Filipino stuff in there. So it was like a very soft way of introducing them to, a different culture. Okay, let's get you to BrushNinja. All right, well, before that, these are similar. I looked for similar books because this is, I retired as a librarian, so this is what librarians do. I'm focusing on 2 books, but there's also books that are similar to it. And this one here I found in Laurel's library is called Priya Dreams of Marigolds and Masala. And it's the same thing like When Lola Visits, about a girl and her grandmother, and how this little girl discovers, about her grandmother, about the culture through food. And it's really nicely done too. I really enjoyed it. My Day with Gong Gong. This one is a little more comical. And Abuela is fairly new. It's not in our system, in the public library system yet, but this is about, granddaughter and her abuela, her grandma. And on this side, books similar to When The House That Lou Built, teenagers trying to make a change in their community or trying to learn a little bit more about their parents. These are books that were similar, and these books were recommended by May Respicio. Okay, so I probably won't have time to go through the lesson draft with Lou, but I'll just do like a quick 10-second lesson draft on When Lola Visits. Both are drafts, so you are all welcome to make a copy of this draft and rename it and do whatever to your heart's desire. So there's a title, there's a grade level, there's links to the standards for those that are obsessed with standards. Luckily, I'm retired, so I didn't want to have to, didn't have to go searching for. And because being having taught for 30 years, it's so ingrained in our minds, educators' mind, that when we do a lesson plan, there's the different parts, all the moving parts move in our brains, and we go through each part. So here's a sample learning goal, sample criteria, sample assessment, sample brief description of the various session, how long it'll be, to reflect on. Here are ways to hook your students. Here's a sample activity list. Let's see, here are, oh, this was a big favor though. The words, the Filipino words appearing in each book, as they appear in order. So for When Lola Visits, these were the words here, and there are links to them to better understand the definition. And there are pictures of cassava cake, what it looks like. There's even recipes if you'd like to follow. Some notes here. And some sample discussion, a sample BrushNinja, a sample page, that what it might look like. Okay, so we'll stop there. We'll go back to, so it's the same thing with the house that Lou built. The lesson will look like that. And again, it's just a draft. Okay. Let's go to, can we, Debbie, is it okay if we just pause here for a little while and maybe I'll entertain some
Sure.
Questions? Okay, so if it's a question that can wait at the end, then fine. But if it's something that you really, really want to ask right now, then great. I'll pause before everyone goes on their own computer to do BrushNinja and StoryJumper. So you're allowed to unmute and.
So there's a question about, could you show a quick demonstration of how to use BrushNinja?
Oh yeah, that's coming up. And then we all can go on there too and kind of do our own thing. Yeah, okay, that's coming up. Is there anything else that we could answer now or just later? Okay, I think that's it. All right, then we'll go to BrushNinja. Okay, so the link here is, yeah, just a general link. So it'll open up. And several years ago, before I retired as a part-time worker, I was looking for some kind of drawing tool that would match this story called Milo's Endless Drawing Pad, which was written by a local author. And she visited the school and she did the story. And then we wanted to do artwork with her. Just like how the grandpa in the story did artwork with his grandson. So I was able to, I was out on the Leeward Coast somewhere and came across, and Caroline, a lady named Caroline K. Curio, introduced BrushNinja. So I went on there and I thought, this is the perfect tool. Well, that was 2.5 years ago. BrushNinja has changed since then. It is now it is an animated GIF creator. Or maybe it was a GIF creator all along and I just didn't notice 2.5 years ago, because as a part-time teacher, I just wanted to do this one thing. So when it opens up, and there are tutorials on the website and also on YouTube. And they're only like, I think they're all 8 minutes and under, very quick, easy. So I'm gonna draw something, yeah? So we are on new. Anytime you wanna start a new drawing, you click on new, we're already there. I'm gonna stick to pink, although your color palette is all here. So I'm just gonna, I don't know, I'm just gonna squiggle something, okay? And you can do different shapes. And I think you can do different backgrounds also. Okay, now I'm going to scroll to the bottom and I'm going to add another page. So here we go. And let me see. Let's go green. All right, green, and let's go thicker. All right. And I'm done. Okay, now I'm going to go here to my animation speed. I'll leave it at 6 seconds. It's pretty quick, but 6 seconds, just for the sake of the what is that sample, yeah. And what is this here? Oh, you can select the background. I'm not going to select the background. So when I play it, whatever the students have, you know, doodled or drawn turns into a what is that? A cartoon, an animated cartoon. So it can be slowed down to tell a short story. Now, is there text? Yes, you can add text. And when I first did BrushNinja, I did not play with text. So, but last night I did it, and let me see. Test. Oh, use, sorry, click on it, and there it is. Okay, so the words will appear. It can be one word, it can be a few words, or I don't know, a short paragraph. But if it's going to be animated and you want the person, you know, you want the reader to read, then of course the animation speed will be slowed down. Yeah. But and in the original draft of When Lola Visits, the idea was to have each child draw a page, and then it was very, very, very primitive, and then print out those pages and collate them into a physical book. That can be done. But with this animation now, it can be saved as .gif. Where is it now? Oh, up here, save. My computer was not able to export. I have a very old computer, but if you click on save, processing, give it a name, save file, and it'll go into your download folder. Now that may or may not work. I forget which one worked. Was it export me? Here, this one worked for me. Although I couldn't do all the other stuff in export, when I pressed on this, export as an animated GIF, it went into my download folder. I was able to remove it, and then, or not remove it at all, and send it like in an email. Or I guess here nowadays it says share on social media or with a teacher. So those things can be done. Okay, let's see what else is there. So I mean, it's very intuitive. I just had a few problems with it, but it's an easy and fun tool. So I'm gonna stop there, and let's see. It is 11:35. Oh, we just have 10 more minutes. If you'd like to play with it, I guess we can play with it after then. I'm gonna try and finish up, and then we can all play with it, and then we can, you know, and we can discuss as we play with it. So let me go to StoryJumper then. Now the link that I gave you, I don't know if it's I don't know if it's a link to my account or if it's just a regular link, but anyway, StoryJumper, and I already have an account from many years ago, but each teacher or each user has to create an account. And then as a teacher, if you would like your students to have accounts, that can be done as well. There's tutorials, but I am on my home page and I'm going to create a book. And I'm going to make it blank for now. So it's heading towards the editor. And StoryJumper, I did it several years ago with a small group of students. It's also evolved. It's changed also. There's a lot more features. So on the bottom here, you are on the front cover. Yeah, so you can choose the color of your front. So let's go purple. So we have a purple cover. And here you can add your title. Sorry, it's okay. Sorry. Oh, typo. And then your name, I'm just gonna. And then we move on to the next page. You can add a dedication message, and then the story starts. And on each page, the student can add text, add these captions here. Students can add props. There used to be more, but now there's more props. You can add scenes. I think when StoryJumper first started, I don't think they had a voice element there, but now they do. So you can, the student can is able to read the story. Yep. Okay, so let's say this is done. Save and exit, I guess. Oh, shoot. I forgot to mention, sorry, let me go back. I forgot to mention that there are two ways for a teacher to have their students collaborate on a story. So once the book is done, the second way is to click here on collaborate, and you add your co-story writers. So anytime they go on to when they open up their StoryJumper account, it will say, it can direct them to the book that everyone is writing on. So each student can do 1 page, 2 pages, or however many. So when the story is done, save and exit, and the story can be reviewed many times. You still have you can share it, edit. It's all done. You want to buy a published copy. Click here. Here are some new features. At one time, it used to be just hardcover, paperback, and an ebook. Now you can have a video book. So if the child did do a voiceover, I'm assuming that their voice will be heard, because it'll be a generic voice telling the story. And here's an example. You can click for an example. Let's listen to that very quickly. Oh. Okay, there's a lot of rendering going on. Stop it when the voice appears, so you kind of get an idea. But it's a very nice introduction that's done for the creator.
The Megasaurus, a story by Thomas Weck and Peter Weck, narrated by Peter Weck.
Okay. So we get the idea. And how do we get out of here? There we go. So there's all those choices. Okay. So for when Lola visits, a suggested activity was to just rename, do what the author did, rename the book When Grandma Visits, and then each student can contribute a page about, you know, what the things that they remember about their grandmother or grandfather during their visit. And that can be done on StoryJumper also. For BrushNinja, because now it's an animator, each child can do maybe a 2 or 4 page slow animation of, say, something like, my grandmother, this is when grandma visits, when Lola visits, we roll lumpias, and child can, do like a 4-part cartoon and animate that cartoon, and we can actually see the lumpias, developing or forming. And this idea here, I know there's a session on iMovie. There has been sessions at Laurel at iTeach several times, but that one is, we have such a TikTok generation now. I'm not even familiar with TikTok, but I noticed that on TikTok, sometimes grandparents and grandchild are doing things on TikTok. So as a spin-off of when Lou builds a house, that story, because in the story you do see a relationship between Lou and her grandmother. It's something simple like, hey grandma, what kind of dances did you guys do, during your time? Show me some, Filipino dances or traditional dances that you do, and then videotape grandma, and then teach grandma some of the new moves of today, and do that together, like a real simple 8-10 second TikTok like a video. And then on the side, maybe the student can keep a journal of how the production was, doing something like that with their grandparents. And there's a sample assessment tool, and you can make it hard, like, well, what did you learn from your grandparents? Two things about your grandparents or your cultural heritage, that can be added to the assessment. So that could be done as an iMovie rather than a story. Okay, last one. So culturally responsive teaching. I like it because it's all inclusive. CRT touches upon collaborative learning, tech, STEAM, social emotional, because the focus is on the child, to show value and acknowledgement of each child's background, cultural background. And there was a word, and it's inclusive and diverse. So when Laurel redid her library, and she did a whole section on culture, she's still not quite sure whether to call it global learners, but she wanted to make sure that there were books representative of her student body, or representative of the languages that are being taught in the school. And she says that this section is, and this section and one or more sections are, the books are just flying off the shelf. The students are just going to it. And yeah, so I think that's a good thing. Here is a sample virtual library. This lady doesn't call it a multicultural collection. She calls it something else. I can't remember what she called it, but anyway, she digitized her Many Voices collection. So with that, I think on the bottom here it says salamat po, thank you for listening, and in the future, hope getting more books that is representative of who we are in our community, and to share. And I think Debbie will also give a reminder to do the evaluation sheet. And on the top here, it says representation demands attention. So that quote came directly from the 2017 case study. Okay, and that's the end. It's 11:46, 1 minute late. I'll hang around. I'll be happy to hang around for another 5 or 10 minutes if anybody would, want to tinker with BrushNinja or StoryJumper. And now, Debbie, is it okay if I take a look at the chat, or are you going to project it? I'm going to stop my screen.
Yeah. Okay, if you have any, there's some things you can look at chat if you wish.
Okay, are you going to project it, or shall I click on it?
Oh, so some people ask for the links. I believe that a site of all the websites and your shared slides will be on there, and so that should be emailed. Should have been emailed to you. If not, I think we'll get that emailed. But meanwhile, mahalo to Imelda and for everyone's participation. We hope you found this session helpful and made some valuable connections. Please help us to complete the survey on iTeach808 website, which I'm going to put in the chat right now. The survey will be sent to your email that you registered with. Check your spam folder too if you don't see it. And once you complete a survey by February 4th, you'll be entered to a drawing for a Target gift card. That's what's awesome. We also like to say thank you to Augustine Educational Foundation and Sacred Hearts Academy Honolulu. Much mahalo for attending this session. And we hope you're able to join us on Wednesday's session, which starts at 1:30 p.m. And have a wonderful day. But again, if you want to stay on, you can stay on. And I'm going to stop the recording now. And you can stay on with Imelda till about 12 o'clock or so. Yeah. Can you stop recording?
Yeah, about 5-10 minutes. If there's any